Welcome to Prime Time, a show for people in the prime of life. I'm Susan Hoskins, the Executive Director of the Princeton Senior Resource Center. If you're interested in finding out more information about the Senior Resource Center, go to our website, www.princetonsenior.org, or call us at 924-7108. I'm happy to have with me today Madolyn Greve. We're going to talk about selling your home. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and I love the idea of prime of your life because that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Great. One of the questions that I often get when people come into the center or family members come to visit is, what can I do? It's time for me to leave this great big house that I have, this 5-bedroom house, and now I'm widowed or I'm a widower and I'm living here alone, and it's a lot to take care of.
It is.
And so we encourage people. We know that people want to stay in the community, stay in their homes. But I think it's a pretty daunting prospect if you've lived in a house for 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years to think about moving.
Yes,
so
yes.
Where should a person start?
Well, a person should really start by calling a real estate agent just at the beginning when they're thinking about it. Maybe their family has talked to them about downsizing. And, they may still feel frustrated and thinking, this is not what I want to do. And what do I do with all my stuff? What do I do with my pets? How can I make this transition? So calling a realtor right away is the first move.
If a person calls a realtor, are they committed to working with that realtor? Can they shop around to different places? Or
They can shop around. They can shop around. And what you need to do is you need to look at the realtor. Is that realtor local? Does that realtor work in your market? Are they a member of your area boards? Do they have the marketing skills?
So just working with your cousin Johnny's uncle Fred
may not be
the
best thing to do, because if they're not knowledgeable about the immediate area, they don't have the contacts that are necessary to market your home and the local team that you will need to be able to prepare your home for sale.
Because I think a lot of people are really cautious. It feels like going to a stranger, and your home is the biggest asset you have for most people. So not only are there all the emotional strings, it's really hard to think about entrusting that process to somebody. Do they have my best interests at heart? And I guess that's one of the questions that I've heard about real estate. Like, if I go to a realtor, is that person working for me and to have my best interests, or is that person working for the buyer and trying to find the best deal for the buyer? And how do you deal with those buyer and seller issues?
I know it has changed. You're absolutely right. We have Opinion 26, which spells out exactly what a realtor's roles are in the state of New Jersey, in this surrounding area. And I remember when we all purchased our homes years ago, the realtor was exclusively working for us, even though they were working with the buyer. Nowadays, you have different representations that different roles that realtors can fill. You have a realtor that can work exclusively for you as the seller. You have a realtor that exclusively works for the buyer. And then we have something that's kind of hard to put your hands around, which is a disclosed dual agent. And a disclosed dual agent is from the same agency, the brokerage, that you've chosen to list your home with. But if they bring a buyer to your home, that's called disclosed dual agency because they're representing you and the buyer. But you need to allow disclosed dual agency in order for your agency to be able to bring you buyers. Many agencies will, because they know the listing so well and they've previewed it, will sell their own listings. And it's difficult. When you're looking at a realtor, though, you do need to find a realtor in that 50-plus group that understands you, that takes the time to listen to your needs, that is knowledgeable about the needs of the 50-plus group, because it is very different. My team, when working with a 50-plus client, is an attorney, an accountant, a financial planner, perhaps even an estate planner, working intimately with your relatives, getting to know them, understanding the markets. You mentioned downsizing, Susan, and you're right. What areas in this community are perfect or ideal for that buyer?
And sometimes you need someone who will help with just that piece. Sale of the home is one thing.
Yes.
The downsizing is another issue. Okay, I'm downsizing into a one-bedroom apartment. What do I take and what do I sell, and how do I sell, and all of those kinds of questions. And that's kind of a different specialist, isn't it?
Right, and your realtor will have that team put together for you. The packers, the movers, the auction houses. Possibly a realtor from your area will know where can you give your items, and it will be considered a donation, and someone will really truly be able to use those items.
Right. We have a whole list of those things in our community resources, because a lot of people call for that. I got a call not too long ago. I've had to come to town to empty out my dad's apartment, and where can I give stuff? And so we have a whole listing of organizations that we've become familiar with who accept those donations and make sure that they go to people who need them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your resource does recycling of durable medical equipment. So that really expensive wheelchair and the walker and the cane through all those stages, and
where can they go? Yes.
These help those go to people who can't afford them.
Yeah,
so
that's wonderful. That is wonderful.
Now, your business card says Gloria Nielsen Real Estate and SRES Specialist. So let's talk about what that stands for.
Okay.
And why a person should look for that.
Yeah, that's a senior real estate specialist designation. And that designation was started in 2007 by the National Association of Realtors. And when that designation came out, it was specifically to offer realtors additional education and the designation to understand how to deal with that 50-plus mature client. And for me, I've had that training has given me tax training, estate planning training. It gets into reverse mortgages. It gets into 1031 exchanges. It gets into probate. It's very in depth and in detail. And it's interesting because I received this designation because Bill Geist, in his book in 1997 called The Big 5-0, did statistics on baby boomers. And typically baby boomers are someone who's been born between 1946 and 1964. And right now, every 7 seconds, someone becomes a baby boomer. It's amazing. So we're looking at 4 million people in our population becoming baby boomers every year. It breaks down to, per day, close to 11,000 people. So that is a specialized category that as a realtor, I couldn't ignore. And that I'm a part of.
Right, and since we were designated the baby boomers when we were born, and now we're turning 50, were starting to retire.
Yes.
This is the generation that is now looking at some of these issues of transition. You know,
Yes.
some of us, I mean, the boomers have been different at every stage of life. And so one of the things that we look at in the aging field is how are boomers going to change this next stage as they get to it. And one of those things is that some people who are in their 50s and 60s still have dependent children. And
Yes.
others are becoming grandparents. So there's a lot of variation within the generation. A lot of boomers expect to continue to work, expect
Yes.
to continue to be active. And so their housing needs may be different. And I think that some of them, I think that it's my sense that the boomer generation is the generation that a lot of the active adult communities were built for and marketing to.
Yes.
Because they expected boomers to say, you know, I don't want to take care, I don't need a 5-bedroom house anymore, but, you know, I'd like to have the golf course nearby or the pool nearby or the tennis court nearby, and, you know, I want to live in a community, but I don't need to take care of the outside and the yard anymore.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense. It does make sense. And you're right, Susan, there's so many segments to the baby boomer. You know, there's 4 different segments of generations within that baby boomer category. And each of us have different needs. And one thing that the 55 and up active development community didn't think about was the changes in the economy. And many of us baby boomers are looking at perhaps having our college graduates return home.
That's true.
And live with us.
Right.
So the housing, the housing needs are not necessarily that large, you know, 4 bedroom, you know, 2.5 bath home, but a home that does offer a lot of storage. You know, and
they bring their stuff back even if they don't come back.
Right. I mean, you know, you can downsize.
But I think what I hear you saying is also that as an SRES specialist, it's also important for you to understand your audience, so that if you're talking to an active adult of whatever age, because I don't think that the age lines are as critical as where a person is in their stage of life. So you may be talking to an active adult who says, I want to live in a place where there's lots of fitness opportunities. And then you're going to be looking for one kind of thing. But if you're talking to someone who is frail, can't go up and down stairs as much, they're going to be looking for a different kind of opportunity. And actually it makes me think we haven't been talking about serving as both the seller of your home and helping you get the next thing, right? I mean, you...
Yes.
As a realtor, maybe you talked about the working for both the seller and the buyer of a home, but you would be able to help a person not only sell the home they're in now, but look for the next opportunity. And that's why you need all that awareness of the legal issues, the estate planning issues, because some people that come to me are looking for a place to rent rather than a place to buy, because they want to have their assets more liquid, or they're going to move in with a family member, or moving to an assisted living community, or something like that. So.
And to answer the question, I would recommend working with the same real estate agent, working with your specialist you've designated, and you only need to work with one agent who has your home listed for sale. And I would recommend in our current market to list your home first. And I know that's very difficult, but not be pressured into having to sell your home short by being pressured by your purchase. If you have the equity in your home and you have the means to purchase a home prior to selling, that's ideal. But normally I will advise my clients to work with me on the sale and purchase, and most of my clients do, where I know their needs They've only had to go through their needs, their family's needs, with one person, myself. And then that way the timing also in the contract of sale and the contract of purchase, I can, alongside their attorney, work the timing of the closing date and the transitions, and perhaps create loopholes that will assist them and give them a little bit more flexibility. Because in this age group, the most important thing is control. Control, decision making, being part of a team, being asked their opinions.
Right. Feeling that your feelings are respected.
Yes.
Because oftentimes it's the family that's saying, Mom, you really need to do this. And there's a lot of memories and a lot of attachments wrapped up in the community and in the home you're in.
Yes, there are.
So
there are.
Now, when we were talking before we came on, you also talked about an additional incentive right now for people to think about home purchase.
I'm very excited about this because I know from my business this year, fourth quarter of 2009, that I have benefited from that first-time home buyer $8,000 tax rebate incentive. And now that incentive has been expanded to all buyers.
So the fact that I'm already in a home that I own, but I'm wanting to move into another purchase, I would still be eligible for that rebate.
You would be eligible for a $6,500 rebate if you've lived in your home for 5 of the last 8 years. And I think that most of our listeners have probably fall into that category. But you just need to purchase your home before April 30th of 2010.
So the closing would need to be...
The closing would need to be prior to that date. But that's a wonderful additional incentive because, you know, for the first-time home buyers, every transaction creates 5 more transactions. So I think that by adding this additional incentive,
economic stimulus.
It's right. It's definitely part of the economic stimulus package, and we're very excited about it. And thank you, because part of my job as a realtor is an advisor and educator, much like yourself.
And that's why we have this show, is that we're trying to get information out into the community for anybody who's listening to learn more about the resources that are out there, the programs that are out there. And a lot of these things, I think, get very complicated, and some people just sort of put them off because it just is so daunting.
It is daunting.
And confusing.
But the best recommendation I can make is don't be shy. Just pick up the phone. You know, call your local realtor. And you're right, you can shop around. But once you feel comfortable with someone who really listens to your needs, puts you part of their team, puts you in the driver's seat with them, then go for it. And just before you do any renovations, any improvements, call your realtor.
Now, as a realtor, you know, we have in our minds this model of you sell one home, you buy another home. I know that with older adults, people aren't necessarily following that model where you're moving from this neighborhood to that neighborhood or this town to that town because you want to live closer to your children. Some people are moving into condos, some people are moving into active adult communities. Can a realtor help, or some people are choosing to rent, can a realtor help you with those transitions as well?
Yes, a realtor can help you rent a home. Most realtors not only handle selling a home and marketing a home, but they also deal with rentals. And that's a very important part of the market for a realtor. And a realtor can also help you relocate. So if you have a realtor that's listed your home, go to that realtor. She will be able, or he will be able, to advise you on a realtor at the other end of your relocation.
Because I have people who call and say, I'm thinking about bringing my mom to live here in Princeton, where do I start? And that's one of the times you hear from me.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very easy because I can link up with that realtor, and that open communication between the two realtors is so important, and it's a relationship not to be ignored.
What are some of the kinds of things that a person should do to begin to get ready to sell their home? And
that's a very good question.
After you call the realtor, I think we did step 1. How about step 2 and 3? What kinds of things should a person be thinking about or working on?
You know, when you think about putting your house on the market, you need to ask yourself, you know, who is my buyer?
Okay.
What is the profile of my buyer? And you and your realtor can sit down. And actually, one of the questions I ask is, how did you fall in love with this home?
Good.
What did you see in this home that you love? The community. And we actually sit and make a list. And that's one of the items that assists me in marketing the home.
Right. And writing up that listing.
Writing up that list, yes, the listing.
Blocks from the high school.
Right. So we look at that.
Walking distance to town.
Right. And then we look at what is that current buyer looking for? If we make minor changes that aren't expensive, that can bring a greater return or a quicker sale, that's the next step we'll take.
And that's part of where your knowledge and wisdom comes in, because you've been working with people who are looking for homes in this community and know what they're looking for.
Yes. And then pets are
not
also...
Not the 1950s Formica countertops.
No. No. And you'd be surprised how
fluorescent
easy
green.
it is to convert those Formica countertops to granite. Very easy. And not intrusive either. And that's another thing to hire a realtor, because she has that team of trusting professionals, because you just don't want anyone in your home. You know, safety is a large issue that I deal with in my business.
Right, and I think that's another thing that troubles people, is people are going to be traipsing in and out of their home, and you know, both looking at it, but also, as you say, those workmen. I mean, a lot of the folks that people don't embrace this step in their life. They really put it off, and often the home has suffered some from maintenance, and so you need to have trusted workmen who can come in and do those little touches that make a big difference, whether it's the landscaping or the outside or inside appearance.
But that's, you know, that's the first step. And also what I'll do is I'll actually have my clients be a buyer for a day.
Talk more about that.
We'll look at it. It's interesting. I place them in my car just as though they're a buyer, and I show them comparable homes in the neighborhood. And at the end of the day, if they don't buy their own home, then we need to decide, then we make another list. What do we need to do that you would buy your home today? And it's very interesting. If you have a willing client that's willing, you know, that's able to do that with you, it's very eye-opening. I know it's a unique
that makes a lot of sense. And you know, sometimes it's by going into other homes that you get ideas, like, ooh, I could do this, I could do that.
Yes.
You know, that trick that everybody talks about, you know, bake bread an hour before somebody comes to visit your home.
Exactly. Apple pie. Right. Yeah.
So,
and that is important.
What are some of the kinds of things that you focus on? We just have another minute or so, but what are some of the kinds of things that you focus on when you're helping a person look at the next step, when they're the buyer, not the seller?
When they're the buyer, I look at accessible to transportation for them, accessible to medical care, close to their friends and family. That is so important, you know, if at all possible. Trying to keep them within the same community, which is possible in Princeton.
Yeah.
you can do that.
I know several people that share a duplex.
I think that's
The
a
younger-
great idea.
You know, so you've got grandma and grandpa on this side, the daughter here, and her kids. And what a wonderful way to have space and yet share the care.
And I think we're going to be seeing even more of that in years to come. You're absolutely
Well, one of the
right.
things, you were talking about demographics earlier and baby boomers. I mean, I think one of the things that's a big surprise to a lot of baby boomers is they didn't expect to spend their retirement taking care of their parents. The parents are living longer.
You're right.
And boomers are, we don't have as many people in the caregiving generation as we do in the aging generation. And so families are needing to step up again and really take care of, for financial reasons, for emotional reasons. We want to take care of each other.
Yes.
And so that kind of proximity is really a wonderful model for that.
It is. It is. You're absolutely right.
So. Other kinds of things. I mean, I know that one of the things that I look at is physical accessibility. You know, maybe
you're right.
You know, if you're in your 70s now and you're looking at a new home, is it one that you can stay in for the next 10 or 20 years?
Right.
Does it have a space that can be made into a bedroom on the first floor?
Right.
Does it have wide enough openings that should you need to use a walker or a wheelchair at some point, you can get through your home? You know, is it up 8 steps just to get to the front door?
Front door, that's a problem.
Then that would precipitate another move that you might not embrace.
Right, you may not. And another thing you need to look at is if you're moving into a community, is there assisted care facility linked to that current community?
Right.
You know, that's something very important to look at.
I encourage people to go into those communities and spend a day or two, talk with other residents, go to some meals, see what the activities are really like.
I like that idea.
So, great.
And also, does the community have transportation?
Right, very important. And what we're concerned about from the social service side is what kind of support services are there? If there isn't transportation out, what kinds of services support the residents of that community? Yeah. Madolyn, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. This is my pleasure.
The time goes by so fast. So
Thank you.
I really appreciate your coming. Madolyn's information will be up at the end of the show, as well as the Senior Resource Center. So thank you for joining me on Prime Time.
Thank you, Susan.